fuck. I had someone fucking call me in the middle of this fucking video, so now I have to start all fucking over again. Anyway, as the name implies, it's King J here for another great video on my drug series experience, harm reduction videos or whatever. Disclaimer, I want to say I don't condone the use of drugs. I'm just merely relaying my experiences with them. Little known fact, I used to have a cig review channel called Smoker Metalhead 666. I no longer do cigarette reviews for the simple fact that it's redundant in a way. I mean, it's fucking cigarettes. You got menthol and regulars. That's all you really need to know. I might do it again sometime, just as a, I don't know, just as something to do. But anyway, let's get to the topic, PCP. Now, I will say that I don't like how the media demonized a lot of these substances that talk about, this being one of the big ones. Just for the simple fact that it's weird in the sense that it's one of those things that a lot of people don't really try or even get the opportunity to try. So I want to give the viewer my take and my experience so that maybe they don't have to try it or they don't have to do these things, but just so they know that it's not as bad as what people say it is, especially when it comes to this particular substance. Now, I first tried it when I was 16. What I would get was I had a Connect up in Stafford County, which is around the Fairfax area. It's basically Northern Virginia, okay, and it's pretty abundant up there. They call it wet PC, which is PCP, or boat, or love boat or whatever. But now, so to speak, everyone gets it confused with embalming fluid. If you were to smoke embalming fluid with one of these, you would blow your fucking self up, because embalming fluid is extremely fucking flammable. Now, the way you smoke PCP is you get, usually just to be on the safe side, what I did, I don't smoke PCP anymore. I don't snort angel dust, anything like that. But what I would do is, this pertains to the smoking method. When you get to the, when your cigarette's about dead, you light it with the, the already lit part, just in case. But basically, I'd get it by the cigar box load. It all depended on how much I would get at the time. But, usually it'd be filled up. Something like this, all filled up with vials of PCP. I tried selling it, but none of my friends really wanted it. I let them try it. They didn't really like it, so I was like, fuck it, whatever. So I ended up, using a majority of it, which kind of led to one of my addictions, which led to another addiction, because, well, I'll get that, I'll get to that shit in a minute. Anyway, let me tell you about the first time I did it. So, the first time I did it, who was I with? I think I was with, was it Frank? No. It was my buddy, I think it was Alex. I think it was my buddy Alex. And, what was that kid's name? Aaron, yeah. It was me, Alex, and Aaron. So, I dipped one. We all tried it. And of course, my friends, I did it a little bit less because they were kind of apprehensive about it. They were the only people in my circle of friends that had tried acid, real acid. I hadn't tried it at that point. I didn't try acid until I was around 20. But anyway, I dipped their cigarettes probably up to there. I dipped mine probably up to here. And I had another cigarette that was already lit, and I proceeded to light it. So first thing right off the bat that happened when I took my first hit of it was a, like your peripheral nerves, like your face and, kind of like upper part of my body went sort of numb. That was the first thing that I noticed. I didn't really feel dissociated or stoned at that point, so I said, fuck it, I'm gonna try to take a few more hits. I'm gonna spare how many hits I took. I was kind of fuzzy memory, but anyway, I think I got up to about there, and I remember I flicked it on the ground. And I said, "Fuck this," because at that point, I don't know. It has a weird way of like messing with your perception. It makes you kind of delusional in a sense, especially if you've never done dissociatives before. And this was before I tried DXM. So anyway, I completely fucking lost it. I didn't know I was human. Felt like I was melting into the ground. Everything around me was kind of I wouldn't really say it was moving, but it was just, it looked weird. It looked off. And it felt like I was cold. I was physically cold most of the time, but I was numb too. So like I said, hey, Alex, hit me. So he slapped me really hard in the arm. I was like, I didn't feel that. We started tripping out, laughing and shit. Well, I ended up starting to get hot then, overheated. Is one of the symptoms one of the side effects rather is that it makes you really hot. So I started to get overheated and I took off my shirt. Well, before I know it, I'm butt ass naked running around my fucking neighborhood. This is a neighborhood, mind you, full of older people. So, they like to sit on their porch and drink bourbon and drink their coffee and shit or whatever the fuck old people do. So I'm running around butt ass naked in my neighborhood in a circle, mind you, in about a stretch of, like 500 feet, just running in a big ass circle. And they call the cops. So I run into the woods and I sit down on a log. And I remember looking at this log and I started talking to it and it answered back to me, which is really fucking weird. Well, long story short, I ended up in the hospital that day. My friends totally split. They went home. They got in my buddy Aaron's car and they left. They didn't want to have anything to do with that shit. So I ended up getting out of the psych ward. And, they drug tested me. They found PCP in my system, whatever. I got back home and I was like, okay, that was kind of fun. Maybe I should do a little bit less, see what happens. So I did it again, and the second time I did it, it was a little bit better. But it is a mind fuck, and it lasts a long time. At least for me, it lasts between, like 7 hours. It can easily send you into a trip that lasts almost half a day. It depends on how much you smoke. At least for me, if I were to smoke probably like up to here, I'd probably be tripping for about 6 to 8 hours. Just off one, dosage unit, which is a cigarette. That's merely my experience of smoking it. It's not a psychedelic, it's a dissociative, and that's true by its nature. It has these weird effects that makes you kind of like impervious to pain, but at the same time you can go into a hole, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's one of those things, if you ain't tried it, it's really hard to fucking explain how it fucking works. But I'll do my best. Now, snorting it is totally different, at least in my experience. Because you can accurately measure out, as long as what your product is pure, you can measure it out to the point where you're taking such and such amount of milligrams. So, I did between 2 and 3 lines when I would get the powdered form, which was very infrequent and usually wasn't very pure. Good PCP, you do a line and you're fucking good to go because it's very stimulating. Not so much as when I first did acid and I found out acid was very stimulating, but it's more or less in the sense of, how do I put this? It's like a really speedy, high-level third plateau DXM trip, but more clear-headed, but at the same time, you're not able to make rational, sound of mind decisions. Sometimes you'll completely lose touch of reality. Like one time I was staring up at that light over there. I was staring up at my fucking ceiling lamp in my bedroom, at my parents' house. And I remember looking at it and thinking that it was the answer to my problems. Like that light was going to solve my life problems. It was weird. And there was other times where, I would see people like these shadows come into my room. And they would talk to me. I had full conversations with them. So it can make you a little bit delirious if you do too much. Now, like me, I like to say things to an extent that's way too fucking far. So I ended up getting strung out on it. And my thing, what I did was, I tapered myself off of DXM. But that's besides the point. My advice to you guys is if you're going to try it maybe once or twice and don't fuck with it again. When I was doing this, the insufflated form, which is, when you snort it, the angel dust, it was a lot different. It was more speedy. It was a lot more relaxing. It was euphoric, but at the same time, you do too much, you can go into like this hole. You'll kind of like melt out of your body, or you'll go out of your body, or you'll feel like you're part of a couch, or you feel like you're part of the wall, or you'll fucking totally dissociate from reality. You don't know what the fuck is up. It's one of those really weird experiences. It's not like ketamine. It's not like DXM. DXM is kind of in its own class of a dissociative. It's more like It has the pain relieving effects of heroin. It has the speediness of meth, the euphoria of coke, but it has the dissociative qualities of a very, very, very heavy third plateau trip. Sometimes even bordering on the fourth one. If you do smoke too much, snort too much, you'll kind of just, sometimes you won't even be able to fucking move. Like catatonic schizophrenics, you might get stuck in a position, and it might feel like an eternity, but it might just be 10 minutes. I don't know, it's hard to describe. But I've had friends have seizures on it. I haven't seen anyone. I've read about it, but I've never personally seen someone die off of it. I've seen someone freak the fuck out, like I did my first time. But I've smoked it, snorted it, had experiences with PCP probably about 20 times in my life. When I was strung out, of course, I was doing it, I would redose every maybe every 4 to 6 hours. So, it's what it is. It's not anything I'd ever really do again. If I were to do any hardcore dissociative, I would do the more psychedelic one, which is ketamine. PCP is weird because it's I'm not trying to sound racist, but it's a ghetto drug. It is pretty much manufactured by African Americans. It's kind of confined, and it's sad in a way that it's confined to the ghettos or the slums or the hood. Like you can find this shit. If you go to DC, it's called Splash City for a reason. You can find wet, as they call it, or Love Boat. You can find that shit anywhere, any street corner. It's easy to get, and it's cheap too. You pay between $10 to $15 for a dipper, and if you're getting the powdered form, which is called bags or packets or whatever, you're paying. I never really bought by the gram. I'd usually buy around 0.5, 0.6. It's like fucking $20 for about a 0.6, and you're high for, you can be high for 2 days if you make it last, and that's not a lot of powder, but little goes a long way, especially if you're like going to the club. If I were to advise someone, if they're partying with this shit, I would just say don't party with it at all. If you're doing it, do it with either with someone or alone if you're experienced. If you want to party with it, do ketamine, or take like a medium second plateau dose of DXM. I don't advise PCP to people for the simple fact that it's dangerous. Too many variables, XYZ, shit can go wrong. It has the capability of putting you into a delirium. It has the capability of making you overdose. It has the capability of making you, basically, you won't be able to perceive pain. I remember there was times where I bumped into shit and like literally had cuts and bruises and shit that when I woke up the next day I was like, ow, what the fuck? And I didn't know, because it can kind of like, it fucks with your short-term memory, and in the long term it really does fuck with your memory. It can make you forget shit. Not blackouts, but really just you forget what you do sometimes, or you forget that a minute is really a minute, and a minute might seem like an eternity, and an eternity might be forever, but in reality it's really just like fucking 30 seconds. The time dilation is so intense. It's a combination of time dilation and time compression. You won't be able to reasonably, logically understand the concept of time, which time itself is a human construct. So that's the weird thing. You won't understand time. You might forget who you are. If you do enough of it, you're definitely not going to know who the fuck you are. There's a really strange feeling of meltingness, but also connecting to inanimate objects. You might become an inanimate object, kind of like on Salvia. You might think you're a fucking brick in the wall, Pink Floyd reference right there. You might think you're a cup. You might think you're a dog. You might just become part of something that you're not. So it completely destroys your rational thought process. But this is, I'm not saying in any dosage, in the lighter dosages, you can still think and shit, but it's still kind of, it's very impairing. But yeah, that's my experience with PCP. I hope y'all enjoyed. Should be having another video today about some other topic. So anyway, enjoy, guys. Till next time, it's King J. Give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll keep making these videos per request. Anyway, peace out till later.